Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Now, my last Spider-Man video, I promised you guys that I would be doing a follow-up when the opening weekend numbers did come out, and the opening weekend numbers did come out, coming from Variety. Spider-Man No Way Home debuts to jaw-dropping $253 million. And if we jump over to Deadline, there was an update. So let's get into this. Given the Sunday night estimates we're hearing for Spider-Man No Way Home, it looks as though the Sony Marvel movie is on the verge of overtaking Disney Marvel's Avengers Infinity War as the second best domestic box office opening of all time, with $257.64 million to $260.6 million. Infinity War opened in the final weekend of April 2018 to $257.698 million. We'll wait for Sony to officially call the new record in the morning, but it looks very promising. So as of the recording of this video, there are not any official numbers. The number could go up, the number could not be as big, but still. Spider-Man No Way Home debuts to jaw-dropping $253 million. So going back to the Variety article, don't underestimate Peter Parker. That's the takeaway this weekend after Sony's comic book adventure Spider-Man No Way Home crushed box office expectations, generating a mammoth $253 million from 4,336 theaters in North America. I believe the original estimate was $290 million minimum opening weekend, and it hit $253 million in just the North America alone. That's US and Canada. It was easily the best domestic opening weekend turnout of any movie in pandemic times. Prior to this weekend, no other COVID-19 era film had been able to cross even $100 million in a single weekend. The biggest domestic debut had belonged to another Sony comic book sequel, Venom: Let There Be Carnage, which generated $90 million to start. The final chapter in the Tom Holland-led trilogy had initially been expected to gross $130 to $150 million over the weekend, but it quickly squashed those estimates. On its first day alone, the film collected $121 million. Spider-Man No Way Home had a particularly huge Friday because diehard Marvel fans wanted to be among the first to watch the movie and avoid spoilers online. After only 3 days in cinemas, it's already the highest grossing film of this year and last. Overseas, the latest Spidey outing has collected $334.2 million from 60 international markets for a global tally of $587.2 million. Again, by the time that this uploads, that number may have increased. It ranks as the third biggest worldwide opening weekend ever behind Avengers Endgame, $1.2 billion, and Avengers Infinity War, $640 million. Those receipts have Sony, which distributed the 27th entry in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, already popping champagne. Quote, "This weekend's historic Spider-Man No Way Home results from all over the world and in the face of many challenges reaffirm the unmatched cultural impact that exclusive theatrical films can have when they are made and marketed with vision and resolve," says Tom Rothman, Sony Pictures Motion Picture Group chairman and CEO. I thought Tom Rothman left Sony, or was it? Or no, did he leave Fox? I don't remember. It was one of the two. Holland's newest web-slinging Spider-Man adventure, which teases a tantalizing team-up of superheroes and villains from Peter Parker's past, isn't just smashing COVID-era box office records. The film is experiencing the kind of demand that hasn't been witnessed in theaters since Disney's Every Hero But the Kitchen Sink mashup, Avengers Endgame, which collected a historic $357 million in its 2018 debut. I think he meant to say 2019. Avengers Endgame came out 2019. No Way Home isn't quite reaching those basically unattainable levels, but the movie has been a formidable force, zooming past opening weekend ticket sales for box office behemoths like 2015 Star Wars The Force Awakens for $247 million at least in North America, and 2017 Star Wars The Last Jedi at $220 million. It stands behind only Avengers Endgame and 2017's Avengers Infinity War, that's 2018's Avengers Infinity War, $257 million debut, as the third best opening weekend in history. Counting No Way Home, only 8 films have ever crossed $200 million in ticket sales in a single weekend. Quote, "This is an incredible opening and a timely reminder of what the big screen still means to mainstream moviegoers," says David A. Gross, who runs the movie consulting firm Franchise Entertainment Research. Most big series struggle to maintain their success this late in their run. Sorry, I tripped over my own words. Spider-Man is exploding. Holland is the third actor to portray Marvel's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man after Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. John Watts, who oversaw the 2 other Holland-led movies, returned to direct. The cast includes Zendaya as MJ, Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange, and Marissa Tomei as Aunt May, as well as Alfred Molina, Doc Ock from Spider-Man 2, Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin from Spider-Man 1, Jamie Foxx as Electro from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Thomas Hayden Church as Sandman from Spider-Man 3, and Reese Ifans as the Lizard. Could they not get Dennis Leary back? I could have swore Dennis Leary was the Lizard in what was that? Amazing Spider-Man. I could be wrong. I'm gonna pause the recording, check that, and then come right back. Nope, I was wrong. It was Reese Ifans was the Lizard in The Amazing Spider-Man. I swore it was Dennis Leary for some reason. As a superhero crossover event for the ages, No Way Home sold more tickets on Friday than 2017's Homecoming, $117 million debut, and 2019's Far From Home, $92 million debut, did in their respective opening weekends. No Way Home newly supplants Maguire's 2003 adventure Spider-Man. Spider-Man 3 came out in 2007. Newly supplants Maguire's 2007 adventure Spider-Man 3 with $151 million, not adjusted for inflation, as the biggest Spider-Man opening weekend in history. Surpassing that milestone would be noteworthy in normal times, but it is particularly impressive given the constraints of a marketplace still very much impacted by COVID-related news and concerns, says Paul I cannot pronounce the guy's name. Paul Dergarabedian, a senior media analyst with ComScore. For better or worse, Spider-Man landed on the big screen in the nick of time. The film's remarkable box office revenues coincide with the rapid spread of the Omicron variant of COVID, big whoopee-doo, which is already leading to restaurants, concert, and live theater closures in New York City. Wednesday, Saturday Night Live scrapped its last show of the year and sent home its audience and musical guests, citing an abundance of caution. So far, any fears over developing variants haven't made a dent on Spider-Man No Way Home. Despite skyrocketing infection rates of the Big Apple cinemas in the New York metro area, were the second highest revenue drivers in the country behind Los Angeles, and 2 Manhattan locations, AMC Empire and Lincoln Square, were among the top 5 biggest earners in terms of Spidey ticket sales in the U.S. If cases continue to surge, though, it could make some audience members apprehensive about going to the movies, but unless movie-going confidence takes a sudden nosedive, box office analysts expect the spectacularly reviewed Holland-led film to play in theaters well into the next year. Box office experts believe there's only one reason why Spider-Man No Way Home is turbocharging the box office. Superhero sell. Not if you're going based on the what's the term? Based on box office. Eternals didn't do all that well. Black Widow didn't do all that well, but granted, Black Widow was a day and date release. And what was the other one? I swear, I'm forgetting another one. I think there's a table at the bottom of this. So it'll remind me. In other words, the comic book Adventures performance doesn't reverse fortunes for the well-regarded movie theater business. Rather, industry insiders believe it punctuates the reality that multiplexes have been and will continue to be more reliant than ever on big-budget spectacles, particularly of the superhero variety. Still, as many note, it's exciting for any film to reach such rarefied heights. Quote, "The weekend is sensational, but until COVID recedes, it is considered something like the flu. The business is not out of the woods," Gross says. Case in point, Guillermo del Toro's star-studded crime thriller Nightmare Alley, which launched in 5th place to a muted $3 million from 2,145 theaters. It's a rough start for a movie that reportedly carries a $60 million price tag, the most money that Searchlight Pictures, the studio behind Nightmare Alley, has ever spent on a film. Despite positive reviews, the movie's target demographic of adult audiences have been reluctant to return to the movies. By contrast, young men, the key market for comic book and science fiction tentpoles, have been feeling attendance for pandemic-era hits like A Quiet Place Part 2, F9, The Fast Saga, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and No Time to Die. But again, is that even true? Is that young men went to go see A Quiet Place Part 2? Because the first Quiet Place movie was sort of a sleeper hit. So where is your data and your, where's your data to support that theory of, that young men have been feeling the attendance for these particular movies, Quiet Place Part 2, Fast and Furious 9, Shang-Chi, and No Time to Die. Without that, we don't know. With movie theaters devoting nearly every auditorium to Spider-Man No Way Home, that could probably be why it made so much money, if it's playing in the majority of the theaters in the multiplex, you know, you can get a lot more people to go see the movie than if it's only playing on 2 or 3 screens. Let's be 100% honest. This weekend's other offerings had to settle for scraps. In a distant second place, Disney's animated musical Fable Encanto nabbed $6.5 million from 3,525 venues. And remember, Encanto is coming to Disney Plus for you know, free to all subscribers, I believe on Christmas Eve. So how many people are just going to hold out to watch Encanto then? After 4 weeks on the big screen, the movie has generated $81.5 million in North America. Disney's West Side Story adaptation and Sony's Ghostbusters Afterlife will vie for third place. Each movie brought in $3.4 million over the weekend. Steven Spielberg's big budget take on West Side Story suffered a huge 68% drop from its $10 million debut, pushing domestic revenues to $17.9 million. Meanwhile, the latest Ghostbusters sequel has made a solid $117 million at the domestic box office. And let me see, there is a table at the bottom of this, and I swear I'm forgetting one. Yeah, Black Widow. Shang-Chi did really well. Yeah, and Eternal straight up bombed. So this article is not going to do it. I'm going to do it right here. I'm going to call Spider-Man No Way Home for what it is. It is a statistical anomaly. It is the exception. It is not the rule. Also, what they also failed to mention was that Spider-Man was already an extremely popular character, extremely mainstream, extremely popular character long before he was in the MCU. Not a single Spider-Man movie that Sony has produced thus far, as of the recording of this video, from the 2002 movie with Tobey Maguire all the way up through now, has ever been a box office bomb. It's just some movies made more money than others. So what you're seeing right now, and they're already calling it, it's like, oh, this is a great win for theatrical exclusivity, and theaters are relying on big tempos, blah 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 blah. You're basing your analysis on a statistical anomaly, an exception to the rule, which is the first thing you don't fucking do in statistics, which means, you know, these quote-unquote experts that they're getting have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. Because if you weigh this against every other movie that came out, again, Black Widow opening weekend was $80 million. Shang-Chi was $90. Eternals was a lot less. All of them were below $100 million. Any movie that made over $100 million opening weekend in 2021 is a statistical anomaly. It's the exception, not the rule. And guys, that's all I've got for you before I tangent off for way too fucking long. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you've been following me long enough, you know I'm terrible at ending these videos, so I will just see you guys next time.